OnlyFans is a putrid, nauseating assault against everything that's pure and decent. It's a site created by losers for losers. OnlyFans is a virtual meat market where men pay women to degrade themselves. The business model of OnlyFans capitalizes on giving men a hollow sense of connection to a steady supply of surrogate girlfriends.
I love you, my simps. I love each of you and I can't stop thinking about you.
But where did OnlyFans even come from? Well, the simple truth is that OnlyFans is only a thing because our society is deteriorating.
We need a great reset.
Millions of young people have no jobs, and even less have any meaningful relationships. And when you get this lack of social connection colliding with economic stagnation, people start to become desperate. And when people are desperate, you start to see tumors like OnlyFans begin to metastasize. This is a pattern which is seen in broken societies across the globe. You know, it really wasn't that long ago when you'd only see this sort of thing in parts of Africa and bits of Eastern Europe, but now you see it in the West. And nobody seems to care. In fact, OnlyFans now reports that 7,000 to 8,000 new women sign up every single day. And rather than seeing shock or concern at this fact, our society embraces it, with OnlyFans being fawned over for empowering women and changing the face of adult entertainment, because OnlyFans is now the new beacon of progressivism, where salivating young, lonely men search for their next dopamine hit by paying a monthly fee for a mass-produced, hollowed-out sensation of connection. And the people who broker this exchange between atomized men and desperate women are called pimps. Great civilizations do not celebrate pimps. Pimps are shamed. Pimps are put in prison. But in our society, pimps receive millions and are applauded for their efforts. BuzzFeed went so far as to comparing driving for Uber to uploading to OnlyFans, claiming that, quote, work is just another avenue for the average worker to make ends meet, which is why I think it's fair to say that OnlyFans is the harbinger of our imminent societal collapse. Because great civilizations collapse when the economy serves not to elevate, but to denigrate the population. We're now at that point, where dignity in youth is chopped up and distributed for a profit, where young lonely men are bombarded with lies of finding intimate connection for a fiver. And with our stagnating economy, women are left with nothing to sell but their bodies and souls for the next month's rent. This combination of emotionally desperate men and economically desperate women serves to create this weird debauched concoction of self-destructive societal deterioration.
From now on, like every day, I'm going to give you money. And all of my wages are going to go to you all the time because I think your life's perfect and your life should be so easy. And I shouldn't have any money in my whole life, so I'm going to give you money all the time.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, so your alpha boyfriend is going to be invited to my house, my 3-bedroom house, and you can treat it like it's his own. A stupid white loser does not deserve his own house.
One moment you're lost in a carnival of delight. The next, it takes you somewhere you don't want to be. Somewhere dark and cold, filled with the damned ambiguous shapes and things you'd rather forget. You're going mad.
With all that said, you may think I'm exaggerating. You may think I'm just being prude or simply out of touch. You may want me to instead poke fun at simps, incels and ethos. Or you may only want me to talk about why adult entertainment is bad. But if I only did that, I would be ignoring the much bigger picture. I'd be ignoring the side to OnlyFans that few actually speak about. Because to understand how truly damaging OnlyFans is, we first need to understand the roots of its growth. We need to understand how OnlyFans became a defining part of millennial and Zoomer culture. We need to understand the psychology of the young men and young girls who feel the urge to sell their dignity and self-respect to a giant faceless corporation. We need to understand the wider implications of OnlyFans, because only then can we mitigate its effects. So join me as we cover the toxic world of OnlyFans. But before we get onto that, I need to tell you about something that isn't toxic: securing your privacy with AtlasVPN. When you go onto social media sites like Reddit or Discord, you feel kinda secure because these sites only display your username. But without a VPN, your identity could easily be doxed by those wanting to take advantage of you. But by using AtlasVPN, you're able to completely disguise your IP address, which prevents your personal information being leaked on any of your devices. AtlasVPN hides your virtual location and encrypts all of your data through the VPN server, making for an overall more secure browsing experience. By inserting your email address, Atlas will also scan the internet to see if you've ended up on any recorded data breaches or data dumps that include email names, passwords, or any other sensitive information. Enabling notifications ensures that you're aware of such incidents and gives you a heads up to change your passwords before anyone has a chance to steal your account. So be sure to click the link in the description below to secure your privacy. Currently, AtlasVPN is running a huge discount on their 3-year deal for just $1.39 per month with a 30-day money-back guarantee for all subscriptions. However, this deal won't last for long, so make sure to check it out by clicking the link in the video description below. OnlyFans was launched in 2016 by 33-year-old Timothy Stokely, but before creating OnlyFans, Stokely was just another unknown businessman. Back in the late 2000s, camgirls were the closest thing you'd get to OnlyFans, and the camgirl market was oversaturated to say the least. So how could Stokely tap into this market? Well, like in all business, he needed to focus on a specific niche. What were other people not doing? Where was there untapped demand? The answer was clear: the financial market. Now bear with me here. The financial is a where those turned submissive give money and material to the dominant. Stokely's idea was to monetize this after finding a subreddit promoting the stuff. In his research, Stokely observed that people would spend large chunks of their paycheck for these weird economic relationships on sites like Reddit. And so after gaining investments from his relatives, glam worship was launched in 2011, and an economical dominance economy began to blossom. Although glam worship's success wouldn't last long, because in the same year, Twitter and Venmo were gaining popularity across the internet. This would be the final nail in glam worship's coffin, because through Twitter and other social media sites, consumers would view the content on glam worship and then reach out to performers on platforms like Twitter for their own personal videos, causing glam worship to lose large chunks of revenue. Which is why it didn't take long for Stokely to shut down glam worship. Not long after, he would go on to his next venture, Customs for You. Customs for You was created by Stokely and his father in 2014. The purpose of the site was to serve as a remastered glam worship site, but unlike glam worship, Customs for You made contracts with the camgirls. This was done so that users could directly request made-to-order content with Customs for You acting as the broker. In a way, Customs for You was basically just the beta version of OnlyFans. But before Customs for You was officially launched, adult film stars were reluctant to join the platform. The reason? They could see that over time, Customs for You would lower the bar to entry in the adult entertainment industry. These stars foresaw the site's business model relied on the oversaturation of the adult entertainment market, whilst also seeing that the site preyed on the naivety and vulnerability of young girls wanting to make quick, easy money. And so at the time, the site was rejected and seen as something flat out damaging, because in this time, the world was a different place. People weren't desperate enough for the site, and as a result, Stokely never launched the site. But it wouldn't take long for this to turn around. After Custom for You's failure to launch, Stokely began reading into the prevalence of adult entertainers creating private content for money. Before OnlyFans, adult entertainers would use Instagram to post videos promoting themselves. But with Instagram's need to keep its brand polished, adult entertainment would be cracked down upon. Stokely had struck gold. Why not build a platform that allows these artists to monetize their work in a simple and secure manner? OnlyFans would be similar to a social media network with a feed such as Instagram or Twitter, except that fans would have to pay a monthly subscription to view these artists' content. This was all because Stokely understood that Instagram had done something unique. Instagram gave followers the opportunity to become almost virtual friends with influencers. So Stokely's idea was simple. OnlyFans would be the paid version of Instagram. To access OnlyFans' paid membership feed, you would be charged a monthly fee, with the fee ranging from $5 to $50. OnlyFans then also set up pay-per-view content, where customers would pay up to $50 just for a single piece of content. And if you really want to be a simp, you can pay up to $100 in tips. This model of pimping was revolutionary. It meant everyone from the girl in your class, innocent-looking ethos, to experienced professional adult entertainers, and even furries could all sell their dignity for cash. And to put into perspective how much money is circulating on OnlyFans, let's take a look at one of the first OnlyFans stars, Danny Harwood. When OnlyFans started in 2016, Harwood was one of the first 10 members on the site. Her earnings in the first month were $257. In an attempt to gain more money, she would create these special occasions for her followers, where she'd get men to do things like, quote, order a pizza to her home and she'd answer the door naked. But what quickly became apparent was that these guys weren't watching for this. material. What these guys really wanted was for her to act as an online girlfriend, where she'd message her lonely subscribers and learn everything she could about them to squeeze as much of their hard-earned money as possible. She'd feast on their insecurities. You can get for free, she said. Guys don't want to pay for that. They want the opportunity to get to know somebody they've seen in a magazine or on social media. I'm like their online girlfriend.
Rough day, huh? Life seems meaningless, huh? Well, you're correct. Its purpose must be chosen by you. Understand that sadness and pain is a natural part of life.
By acting as an online girlfriend, Harwood was able to generate $52,000 in November 2019 alone. And this isn't an anomaly either. In a Vice article they spoke to creators on OnlyFans, the article highlighted how these atomized men basically beg these e-thoughts and tip them extra just for them to talk longer.
What do we have here? You may kiss my boots.
And with the money this is generating, you're now starting to see all these other soulless, self-indulgent celebrities joining in on the fun. For example, the Hollywood actress Bella Thorne made over $1 million just a day after making her OnlyFans account. And of course, Cardi B would go on to release promotional material for her WAP song on her OnlyFans page.
I wanna ride, I do a giggle, I'm kinda wild.
Which is why in 2020, OnlyFans reported that it made $1.2 billion. OnlyFans also reported that the company gained a 42% increase in new accounts, crowning Stokely as the king of homemade adult entertainment. But OnlyFans isn't just any old adult entertainment site, it's a lot worse than that. And to understand what I mean, we need to look into why OnlyFans has had unrivaled success. Because in any healthy society, a site like OnlyFans would never grow so fast. It would just be another fringe site like Customs For You or Glam Worship. So why is OnlyFans a household name? Well, to understand the full scope of this phenomena, we need to look into what catalyzed OnlyFans' success. And to do that, we first need to look into why so many men are forking over their money to this soulless website. OnlyFans wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the pandemic, the loneliness pandemic. In the last 10 years, we've seen our society become increasingly atomized. In the past decade, homelessness among young men has skyrocketed, with 28% of men aged 18 to 30 reporting no sexual contact within the past 12 months. That's a disaster. So how did this happen? Well, let's take a look at the typical life of so many young men. Today's young men start their life with a family that isn't connected to their community or religion. Most young men come home from school to hear their parents argue. Most men are raised in school by a joyless crone who shouts at them, who yells at their innate boyish behavior. Young men then see that those who sit quietly and act feminine are rewarded by the teacher. In school, the boy is unable to access any deep connection with the people around him. Often in conversations, people feel like they have nothing interesting to say, and they don't feel like anybody else does either. You go to bed for peace, for relief, and as soon as the alarm goes, you feel the chaos rushing back. The dread, the stress, the hopelessness. In school, most of your interactions will be very surface level, simply because there is no shared struggle or shared accomplishment. We are made to always be working against each other in the same artificially lighted room, doing the same tasks silently on our separated desks. There is no affection for you or others. How could there be, when your peers don't know you and you don't know them? Added into the mix is the introduction of social media into a generation completely uneducated of the dangers of internet addiction. In our most formative years, we become addicted to social media. We look for the next dopamine hit. We dampen the pleasure and satisfaction of real achievement before we're even 18. Increasingly, we are dampening our brain's ability to achieve homeostasis. We've become infantilized by the deluge of anodyne content that saturates our mind, keeping us in permanent adolescence.
Always be with you.
Meanwhile, more than half of us have no long-term romantic partners, with reports now estimating that 1 in 4 people will be single for their entire life. On top of that, we have a media industrial complex that tells us being atomized is healthy and that being single is empowering. So it shouldn't be any surprise that more of us are dying from drug and alcohol abuse than at any other time in living memory. Depression is skyrocketing, and now loneliness has become a normal facet of day-to-day life. And as we grow up, we become enslaved to student debt. We become enslaved to soulless jobs waiting to be replaced by robots.
So when the UK's manufacturing sector collapsed like a warm Easter egg, where did all the workers go? Well, today, over 1 million of them are employed in one of these. It's called a supermarket.
You might see one of these things in the aisle the next time you're in a Walmart, because they're using these robots now to see what's in stock and what's out of stock.
Where our entire economy is centered around a crony capitalist system that eviscerates the family, where we feel like tools of convenience rather than members of a community. And with falling wages and broken relationships, we see the collapse of family bonds, we see collapsing marriage rates, we see single parenthood become more and more common. We see children left without any resemblance of a moral grounding. So is it really any surprise that we see a corresponding rise in desperation? Is it really any surprise that something so abhorrent as OnlyFans has become as mainstream as it is today? And this is what makes OnlyFans so grotesque. OnlyFans is exploiting the misery of a collectively ill society. Men are now lusting after pixels rather than chasing women and finding real love in real life.
More for just a connection, because I was dealing with a lot of loneliness and I had no one to talk to, and that's why I started using it.
These men who desire OnlyFans girls are doing so because their spirit is repressed. You know, Carl Jung often spoke about how the soul is a compensation for your outer persona, which is why when you see these evil tyrants, you realize they are that way because they're being chased by their inner fears. But in the case of OnlyFans, you have all these young lonely men in society who feel socially anxious and repressed. All these guys who are afraid to talk to women after their ego is crushed by apps like Tinder. You get these guys who are so desensitized to natural pleasure by booze, pot and pills and the rampant internet addiction that they have to project their soul onto egos. They desire these girls who seem so full of confidence and power, these girls who appear to have no doubt or regret, rendering OnlyFans as this massive toxic illusion for desperate men who need to feel real life connection the most. OnlyFans is an illusion that only makes men's loneliness worse, because not only are these men getting a drip of anodyne intimacy, but these men are in turn permanently molding their psychological framework. In Freudian psychology, there's this phenomenon known as the Madonna whore complex. This complex is defined when you have this inability to maintain within a committed, loving relationship. Which means as a man, you may only see a woman as a saintly mother of Mary, or as a debased thought. Men with this complex desire intimacy with a degraded woman whilst being unable to have the same desire for their respected partner. Freud argued that this leads to a situation where men love these respectable women but have no desire for them, and yet they have desire for these girls they know they cannot love. OnlyFans is catalyzing this phenomena because you have all these men becoming desensitized to the pleasure and satisfaction of authentic intimacy. These men are instead being programmed to lust after these egos who they know they cannot love, because they're now addicted to this over-the-top raunchy behavior and unrealistic physical appearances.
Bet 1, bet 2, bet 3, see?
OnlyFans gives these guys all this pleasure with no responsibility, something that just doesn't exist in real relationships. This means that you will need more and more stimulation as you build up a tolerance, which means when you become so used to the OnlyFans system of affection, you become unable to get excited by real-life encounters. You no longer have that lust for the woman you genuinely care and love for. Studies now show that this can cause such a shift in your brain chemistry that it contributes to a certain dysfunction. By consuming all this explicit OnlyFans content, you are further miring yourself in the endless loop of self-gratification. You are destroying any hope of finding good partners and actually improving your position in life. By destroying the skill of delayed gratification, you destroy self-discipline and concentration. You lose the desire of chasing after real-life women who are actually good for you, because instead you're sedated, because in OnlyFans the difficulty of finding relationships with Madonnas is now replaced by paying for e-whores to acknowledge your existence and listen to your insecurities. OnlyFans will give you a long-distance girlfriend experience, all without you having to actually improve yourself to attract her. You no longer have to change your habits to get different results in your romantic life. OnlyFans instead subconsciously indoctrinates you into thinking that OnlyFans is reality.
You're beginning to think that the tube is reality and that your own lives are unreal. You do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniac.
It profits from you being unable to grow, it leeches off your relationships, it takes away your desire for the types of women you're actually supposed to be compatible with, all to keep you hooked on their services so that they can milk you for every last drop, leaving you with nothing more but a thick goo of lost potential. When women act like e-thots online, they begin to get treated like e-thots in real life. But when you're allured by the prospects of becoming rich and having an endless supply of guys, it's probably hard to resist the temptation of selling your body, especially when you have the media and celebrities telling you it's empowering, especially when OnlyFans is treated just like another job in the gig economy. But once you go down this path, there is a harsh reality awaiting you. Because in reality, you are selling yourself in a virtual meat market. You're subconsciously devaluing your self-respect. Because when you become an OnlyFans star, you know that deep down, you're corrupting yourself. You can feel it. You always feel this blanket of insecurity wherever you go in your day-to-day life. You are quite literally disempowering yourself. You signal to all your future potential partners that you are willing to intimately share yourself with anyone for a fiver. And so, whether right or wrong, people will label you in the back of their mind, and this label doesn't have an expiry date. Once your family and friends find out, your image is forever tainted by your past.
Word travels fast. When one person sees it, it spreads like wildfire. And I come from a very conservative family, very religious, a lot of military, and I'm from a military town. And I went through a lot. I went through a lot of a lot of depression, a lot of suicidal thoughts. It was rough at first, and my family still dislikes what I do.
But you're not just paying with insecurity and embarrassment, you're instead paying with your own ability to form deep social connections with men you're compatible with, because you're making something like sex, which is a deep experience, become just another cheap transaction. You're turning love and connection into a cheap commodity. So ask yourself this: why would anyone want to invest their time and emotional well-being into you when a group of thirsty guys are getting the exact same experience for £5 a pop? And so you see, this is the real cost of being an OnlyFans model. The cost being the opportunity to establish long-term mutually beneficial relationships. Amanda Summer, for example, was an ex-Ryanair host turned OnlyFans model, and she ended up earning $15,000 a month on OnlyFans. But of course, it wouldn't take long for her to admit that she's deeply unhappy. The reason? She can't find real love. In an article, she revealed that men would often dump her after finding out what she does for a living, admitting that she's crippled by loneliness. And when you scroll online to see men's views on these OnlyFans ethos, almost all of them say they would never have a relationship with someone on OnlyFans, because the binding fabric of relationships is trust. And when the most private and intimate thing that should be exclusive to real-life relationships is being sold to anyone, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise, because we all instinctively understand this. There's something grotesque about reducing relationships into a soulless business transaction. It's inhuman, it's degrading, and it's naked egoism.
That's a great piece of real estate you got there.
And so when your partner's inviting all these people into a private world that should be exclusively between the two of you, that trust will always be broken. And with a site like OnlyFans, this lonely, hedonistic cycle is almost impossible to escape, because you become addicted to the lure of easy money. If you can make good money on OnlyFans, you'll never want to work another way again. I mean, how could you go back to making £8 an hour waiting tables when you can make double the money in half the time? Even though your mental health will deteriorate, you'll always be chasing that next PayPal notification, that next dopamine hit, that next message from a guy validating you. But as you follow this route, you'll always have this underlying sense of loneliness, a sense of numbness. But you know, the real damage of OnlyFans isn't just towards the broken women posting on OnlyFans. The damage is to all the other normal, healthy women in society. I mentioned earlier about the Madonna whore complex and the effects OnlyFans has in ruining men's desire. And whilst yes, this is incredibly damaging to men in the long term, it's also toxic for women. Because sites like OnlyFans make women feel inadequate, like they're just too vanilla, like they can't compete with young men's increasing expectations. OnlyFans obfuscates the divide between adult entertainment and reality. I also mentioned how this is leading to men not growing up. So how does this impact women? Well, when men don't grow up, women become starved of masculinity. This is why new data highlights that women's adult searches are loaded with terms like brutal. It's why 62% of women have had involuntary fantasies. It's why strangulation play has become so normalized to the extent that one woman in the UK is accidentally strangled to death by her partner every 2 weeks. They're overcompensating because they're starved of that natural male force in their life. Now, of course, I'm not saying this is the case for all women, but what I am saying, however, is that the success of OnlyFans is creating a generation of men who neglect the necessary development needed to blossom their innate masculine traits. Traits like confidence, stoicism, and discipline, which is in turn creating a generation of women starved of masculinity, a generation of women who are made to feel that to be loved and desired, they have to be a thought. Which is why I think it's fair to say that OnlyFans is further catalyzing our society into an ever-increasing atomized, barren and hedonistic landscape. Although OnlyFans isn't the cause of this. Instead, OnlyFans serves as the crow pecking on our grey wooden remains. In a society's final days, bizarre, hedonistic and nihilistic behaviour proliferates. This behaviour is then legitimized by the mainstream culture, causing the population's moral filter to become irreparably damaged. And only then do you see things like OnlyFans rise to prominence. So, on the one hand, you kind of have to admire OnlyFans' relentless, predatory capitalism, but on the other, you have to feel nauseous about the state of Western civilization, nauseous about the infantilization of millennials and Generation Z. Nauseous over our eroding moral filters and the resulting self-destruction, not only on a personal level, but on a population level. OnlyFans is what happens when you bring up a generation of men desperately fleeing from the mere hint of any form of responsibility.
I mean, people say it like it's a bad thing, you know, running away from your problems, but if your problems never catch up with you, what's the hitch? You'd be in the woods playing the ukulele with the rabbits and the squirrels.
OnlyFans is what happens when we innovate our own self-destruction. We look to simulate real-life interaction as we neglect the most rewarding interactions that life is all about: community, relationships, and real-life intimacy. We've abandoned high culture in favour of lowbrow junk culture. We've abandoned strength of character in favour of technological dependence. But where's the outrage? Where's the criticism? Instead of criticism, we see praise. We see applause. We see mindless enthusiasm for pimps pimping out the vulnerable. Where men blow what little amount of disposable income they have left for a virtual ethos experience. Where women turn to selling their bodies on OnlyFans to continue living their dreary lives, with no prospect of loving relationships and no prospect of fulfillment. OnlyFans is the consequence of a generation where rampant narcissism is seen as a form of stress relief, where we're kept in a perpetual state of distraction and disruption by billionaire technocrats. Just look around you, at the people crouched over on their phones as they walk the streets or drive their cars or walk their dogs or play with their children. Go to an airport and just look around you at the sea of craned necks and dead eyes. We have gone from looking up and around to constantly looking down, physically and spiritually. We live in a society that legitimizes social media addiction, where you wake up in the morning, you pick up your phone, you check your notifications, you open Instagram and scroll through all the stories and new posts, you check the news, sports, Reddit, you then go onto YouTube where you're bombarded with brightly coloured thumbnails playing on your psychology. You watch videos that leave you with a drip of anodyne lethargic dross, but with just enough engagement tactics to keep you permanently hooked. You then look at your messenger and see no new messages. You look at the couple of new emails in your inbox. You realise an hour of your life has already gone and you're still in bed. At work, you check your phone for every 5 to 10 minutes for the next 8 to 10 hours. You play YouTube or a podcast in the background. You go home, turn on Netflix, YouTube or TV. You watch more videos. You can't pay full attention to anything you're doing. You tell yourself just one more video, then you'll stop. You play games with videos in the background. You wait for the next notification for someone to say something to you. And if you've become so atomized and lonely and so entrenched in this lifestyle, you may start to think that $5 is worth it just to feel loved by some skanky ethos. And so you give in and buy a virtual girlfriend who listens to your problems, even though you and her both know she secretly despises you. You then repeat this pattern every day, every week, every month, every year, every decade for the rest of your life. Meanwhile, the machine learning algorithms become better and better at addicting you to this toxic lifestyle. OnlyFans is only a success because of this degenerating lonely lifestyle which is now the norm for millennials and zoomers. We forget that this lifestyle never even existed just a decade ago. But now, this is our shared reality. This is real life. And the studies have made clear that this lifestyle is now beginning to take its toll. The only reason OnlyFans exists is because our society has become stale. The only cure to OnlyFans is a healthy society. And to cure a sick society, we have to cure ourselves, to take back power to ourselves, to be virtuous in a world where virtue is laughed upon. We need to take back control of our lives, to call out the pimping of our youth. We need to stop mindlessly scrolling across the endless amount of nihilistic, barren distractions that serves as filler to our hollowed out lives. We need to take a step back and just look at how truly isolated we've become. For only then can we start taking back our time and attention. Only then can we start our real life journey of self-development and real world connection.